You've felt it, haven't you? That moment when everything seemed to connect, the look in her eyes, the way she listened, the silence that didn't feel empty but intimate. And then she pulls away. Suddenly she's distant, colder. She stops reaching out. She avoids eye contact. She leaves you wondering, did I imagine it all? But here's what most men never realize. Some women don't ignore you because they don't care. They ignore you because they care too much. And it terrifies them. When a woman secretly loves you but hasn't made peace with that love, she hides. She tests. She waits not for you to chase, but for you to reveal who you really are under pressure. The average man reacts. He panics, chases, begs, pleads. But you are not average. You walk the Stoic path. You stay centered even when your heart wants answers. You don't flinch when love feels uncertain, because you've learned, the one who holds his frame holds the truth. In this video, you'll discover the hidden reason why women ignore the men they actually love, and why your reaction determines whether you lose them forever or become the man they can't let go of. So breathe deeply. Let go of the urge to fix, and prepare to understand what she'll never say out loud, but always shows in silence. Now, let's begin. Number 1. Love triggers fear, not safety. Her emotions run deeper than she can handle, so she distances to survive them. You thought love would bring her closer, that if she felt something real, something undeniable, she'd want to hold on to it. Instead, she pulled away. She grew cold, distant, silent. And you're left wondering, what did I do wrong? But here's the hidden truth most men never understand. When a woman truly starts to feel not just attraction, but depth, emotional surrender, a spiritual pull towards you, it doesn't always make her lean in. Sometimes it terrifies her. Because love, real love, doesn't make her feel in control. It makes her feel exposed. And for a woman who's spent her life surviving pain, betrayal, or abandonment, that kind of exposure isn't romantic, it's threatening. So she retreats. Not because the connection wasn't real, because it was too real, too raw, too dangerous to her carefully built emotional walls. She tells herself you're too intense, too calm, too hard to read, too good, which in her mind can only mean you're going to hurt her later. She doesn't run because you're weak. She runs because you're strong enough to touch the places in her she thought no one would ever reach. This is the paradox most men miss. They think if a woman ignores them, she's lost interest. But often it's the depth of her interest that makes her pull away. Because it awakens something ancient, not just desire, but risk. And risk triggers fear. Fear of losing herself. Fear of needing you more than you need her. Fear of being seen, truly seen, and still not being enough. And that fear doesn't show up in words. It shows up in silence, in mixed signals, in the sudden shift from warmth to withdrawal. You start questioning everything. Was she lying? Was it just a game? Did I imagine it all? No, you didn't imagine it. You just haven't been taught what feminine fear looks like. It looks like ghosting, like sarcasm, like pretending you meant nothing when you were the first man to ever make her feel everything. And that's why the Stoic man doesn't panic, he doesn't chase, he doesn't plead, he doesn't spiral, because he understands that her silence isn't always rejection. It's a signal, a mirror, a test, not of his ability to win her back, but of his ability to remain grounded. He doesn't react, he witnesses. He doesn't collapse, he contains. Because he knows, love that triggers fear isn't broken, it's becoming. And if she's meant to return, she will. Not because you chased her, but because you didn't. Because you stood firm in your essence while she wrestled with hers. Number 2, silence as a defense mechanism. She withdraws, not to punish you, but to protect her own vulnerability. You hear nothing, No message, no call, just silence, the cold, invisible walls she builds between what she feels and what she dares to reveal. And it burns, because everything seemed aligned. The laughter was real, the energy undeniable, the softness in her voice when she looked at you. It wasn't fake. So why the silence? The answer is painful in its simplicity. Because she felt something and now she's terrified of it. Her silence isn't designed to punish you. It's designed to protect herself. Because a woman who's been hurt before, and many have, doesn't always know how to receive something that feels pure. Real connection feels like a risk, a threat to the armor she's spent years forging around her heart. And instead of opening, she disappears. Not because she doesn't want you, but because she doesn't trust herself not to fall too far too fast. So she does what many men misread. She gets quiet, withdraws into herself, stops responding with the warmth she once offered. And you start overthinking. Maybe she met someone else, maybe she never cared, maybe it was all in your head. But here's what Stoic men understand. Not every silence is an ending. Some silences are battles you're not meant to fight for her. You see, when a woman falls for a man who carries depth, who sees her beyond the surface, she's not just falling for him. She's confronting herself, her shame, her fear, her walls. And when all of that rises to the surface, she doesn't lash out. She retreats. Because stepping closer to you would require her to step closer to the parts of herself she hasn't healed. And that's not a decision every woman is ready to make. So she chooses distance, not out of malice, but out of self-preservation. And this is the moment where most men fail the test. They react, they get needy, angry, accusatory. Or worse, they mirror the silence with ego and cut her off without compassion. But you don't do that. You are stoic. You do not beg for her voice, you respect her silence. You do not try to pull her out of hiding, you wait and watch. From the grounded place only self-mastery can produce. Because you've learned. The feminine runs not to hurt you, but to protect the part of her that believes she's unworthy of being loved this deeply. And if you panic, you confirm her fear. But if you stay still, not cold, but contained, you become the proof she never knew she needed. Proof that a man can feel her absence without losing himself in it. So you say nothing, not as a game, but as a mirror. And in your silence, she begins to feel the weight of what she walked away from. Not because you punished her, but because you refused to collapse. And for the first time, she sees the difference between a man who reacts to silence and a man who has mastered it. Number 3, testing your emotional discipline. She wants to know if your love bends, breaks, or remains. There's a moment, subtle but strategic, when she pulls away. Not because she wants to leave, but because she wants to see what you'll do. She doesn't announce it. She doesn't say, "This is a test." But inside, she's watching. Watching if you'll lose control, if you'll chase, if you'll beg, if you'll start offering more than she earned, just to win back the attention she took away. What she's really asking isn't, "Do you love me?" What she's asking is, "Will your love survive my confusion? Will your frame hold when I no longer affirm it?" And this is where 90% of men fail, because they think love means movement. That when she pulls back, you must push forward. That when she's silent, you must speak louder. That when she retreats, you must chase, or she'll disappear forever. But that's not what she wants, not really. She's testing your emotional discipline, your ability to remain steady, not because she's being cruel, but because she wants to feel your containment. Because when she feels something for you and it starts to get deep, there's a fear that comes up. Can this man handle me at my most unstable? And the only way to answer that question is for her to create instability on purpose. So she creates a moment of tension. She withdraws, she says something to push, she becomes inconsistent, and then she waits to see who you really are when you no longer feel in control. Because any man can be loving when he's being adored. Any man can be confident when she's leaning in. Any man can be strong when he's praised. Who are you when she's distant? Who are you when the warmth fades? That's what she's looking for, not your romance, your resilience. And the Stoic man, he doesn't flinch. He doesn't punish her with withdrawal. He doesn't spiral into self-doubt. He doesn't need to force clarity. He lets her test him and remains unmoved. Because his love isn't a reaction. It's a decision, a standard he holds. Not because she's giving, but because he's grounded. As Marcus Aurelius said, if you are pained by external things, it is not they that disturb you, but your own judgment of them. And it is in your power to wipe out that judgment now. You wipe it out. You do not judge her silence. You do not panic at her distance. You simply observe and continue walking in truth. And something remarkable happens. She starts to feel it, your steadiness, your refusal to abandon your center, just to pull her back. And that steadiness, that restraint, it calms the storm she created. Because now she knows if she were to open fully, if she were to lean in again, she would not be stepping into a man who was conditioned by her attention. She would be entering the space of a man who holds the emotional line regardless of hers. And for a high-value woman, nothing is more terrifying or attractive. Number 4, her past pain distorts the present. She sees echoes of old wounds and retreats before you can cause the same. You said all the right things. You showed up with integrity. You didn't play games. You led with presence, not pressure, and still she started to fade. Not loudly, not cruelly, just enough for you to feel her slipping. And here's where most men begin to doubt themselves. Was I too much, too calm, too distant? But often it's not about you at all. It's about what you remind her of, or more precisely, what her pain projects onto you. Because love to a woman who's been hurt is not clean. It doesn't walk in like light through an open window. It crashes through, dragging ghosts behind it. Memories, triggers, stories she told herself to survive the last heartbreak. So when you show up, steady, calm, stable, she doesn't see clarity. She sees the calm before another storm, because that's how it's always gone for her. You remind her of the man who once made her feel safe until he didn't. You sound like the voice that promised to stay right before it vanished. You carry the tone of someone too good to be true, and to her, that's just another form of danger. So she retreats, not because she wants to, but because her nervous system does it for her. It's automatic, subconscious, defensive. She pulls away not to hurt you, but to protect the version of herself that still hasn't healed. And this is where your reaction defines the future. If you take it personally, you confirm her fear that all men eventually turn bitter when they're not met with affection. If you chase too hard, you confirm another fear, that your confidence was only surface deep and your peace depends on her approval. But if you remain present, anchored, unbothered, not out of pride, but understanding, then something shifts. Because women remember not just what you did, they remember how they felt around you. And when she feels safe enough to look back, to examine why she pulled away, she will realize something no other man has given her, a sense of safety without the demand for closeness. Epictetus once said, "We cannot choose our external circumstances, but we can always choose how we respond to them." You live this. You don't try to rewrite her past. You don't rush in to fix her fear. You simply refuse to become part of the pattern. You offer presence, not pursuit. You give her space, not silence. You stay true, not attached. And slowly, without pressure, she may return. Not because you convinced her, but because you didn't contaminate the moment with your insecurity. She'll feel the contrast. You didn't fight her fear. You outlasted it. And that is how a Stoic man breaks through walls without ever needing to knock. Number 5. The paradox of feminine pride. She ignores you not because she doesn't feel, but because she feels too much and hates it. She's not cold, she's conflicted, not indifferent, but deeply unnerved by how much she cares. You may think her silence means she lost interest, but often it's the opposite. She's feeling more than she expected, more than she wants to admit, and that loss of control, that emotional surrender, it clashes with her pride. Because here's the hidden paradox. The more power a woman senses you have over her emotions, the more her ego tries to reclaim the throne. And it doesn't reclaim it with honesty. It does it with distance, with coldness, with the illusion of nonchalance. She ghosts not because she feels nothing, but because she fears you've awakened everything. It's not that she wants to punish you. She wants to punish herself for being so vulnerable. And the only way to do that is to act like you never mattered. So she smiles online, keeps herself busy, replies slower or not at all. And she hopes you'll disappear without confrontation, because if she sees you again, she might have to admit what's true. That you disarmed her, that you saw her, that you stayed in control while she lost hers. To a woman who's proud, successful, used to being admired, that is terrifying. Because you didn't chase her, you didn't crumble, you didn't ask to be chosen. You stood still, and in your stillness, you flipped the power dynamic. Marcus Aurelius said, "The best revenge is to be unlike him who performed the injustice." You don't mirror her withdrawal. You don't try to make her jealous. You don't make passive-aggressive posts or seek closure through performance. You simply remain who you are, unmoved, unshaken, and unwilling to play games. And that unshaken energy, it chips away at her pride, because deep down she knows, if she didn't feel anything, she wouldn't be trying so hard to hide from it. But your composure doesn't give her what she wants. It gives her what she needs. A mirror, a reflection of how much she's resisting her own vulnerability, a glimpse of what it feels like to care deeply and not have control over the outcome, and that to a woman with a guarded heart is more terrifying than heartbreak, because heartbreak ends, but surrender changes her. She may not tell you, she may never admit it, but if you remain stoic, if you hold the line without bitterness, without bait, she will feel the difference between a man who wanted her attention and a man who never needed it to know his worth. And that feeling, that slow, silent collapse of her pride, that's when the chase begins, not with words, but with presence, seeking presence. Because once a woman realizes her pride cost her peace, she'll want the man who never lost his back. Number 6, she's waiting for your collapse. Most men chase, and when you don't, it reveals your strength and her fear. She pulls away not because she wants distance, but because she wants proof. Proof that you're like the rest, that you'll react, that your presence was conditional, that underneath your calm, you're just another man afraid of losing her. It's not conscious. She doesn't sit and plan it out. But somewhere deep in her feminine psyche, she expects collapse. Because collapse is what she's used to seeing. Men who fall apart the moment she steps back, who flood her phone with messages, who beg, explain, argue, perform. Men who can't sit in the discomfort of being ignored without unraveling. So she watches, she waits. Not for your words, but for your weakness. And when it doesn't come, when you remain still, silent, composed, something inside her shifts. It's not the reaction she expected. It's the reaction she needed, because in that moment you become different, not just harder to read, but harder to replace. You've proven without a word that your value wasn't a response to her attention. It existed before her and will continue after her. And that kind of man, he can't be manipulated. He can't be baited. He can't be emotionally blackmailed. That kind of man is dangerous because he doesn't chase peace. He is peace. Epictetus once said, "It is not he who reviles or strikes you who insults you, but your opinion that these things are insulting." Your opinion of her distance isn't panic, it's understanding. You don't see it as disrespect, you see it as a test and pass it by staying exactly where you are. This doesn't mean you don't care. It means you care enough about yourself not to trade your center for her chaos. She throws silence like a stone into your calm lake, but there is no splash, no ripple, just stillness. And in that stillness, she sees the truth. She never had control over you because while she was waiting for your collapse, you were practicing your containment. While she was expecting pursuit, you were showing her what restraint looks like. And that contrast, it breaks the cycle. Now she's not sure. Not sure you'll still be there. Not sure her silence worked. Not sure she ever really knew you because you didn't collapse like the others. You held the line. And now she's the one questioning. Not whether you want her, but whether she deserves the man who didn't need to react to be remembered. Because only one man stands out in a woman's memory, the one who didn't flinch when she tried to control the rhythm. And in your stillness, she begins to realize you weren't waiting for her to come back. You were watching to see if she was worth letting in again. Number 7, your calm presence triggers her growth. She ignores you because your stillness exposes how emotionally unready she is. You didn't raise your voice. You didn't ask for reassurance. You didn't chase her shadow when she slipped into silence. You simply stayed not in pursuit, but in presence. And that unnerves her, because now she's left alone with the mirror you held up, and what she sees isn't flattering. Your calm exposes her chaos. Your groundedness highlights her reactivity. Your clarity confronts her confusion. And it's not that she doesn't want you, it's that she doesn't know how to meet you. Because a woman who has never been around masculine stillness doesn't know how to respond to it. She's used to the noise, to the men who fight for attention, to the emotional fireworks of affection wrapped in instability. But you don't do that. You don't flinch. You don't flood her with words. You don't collapse into her fear. You let her sit in it, and in doing so, you trigger something deeper than desire. You trigger growth. Because for the first time, she realizes that presence, true masculine presence, isn't about chasing her moods. It's about challenging her to rise. You don't say it aloud, but everything about you says, I will not bend so you can avoid bending. I will not shrink just because your emotions expand. I will not carry both of our emotional weights if you won't lift your own. She may call it cold, detached, uncaring, but that's only because she's never met a man who won't make her emotions his emergency. You don't rescue her from the tension. You respect her enough to let her meet it on her own. And if she doesn't, if she chooses to run instead, you don't close your heart, but you close the door. Not out of anger, but out of clarity. Because your presence isn't up for negotiation. It's not a performance. It's not something you give away just because she's beautiful or emotional. It's earned by maturity, by self-awareness, by women who are willing to meet stillness with softness, not games with avoidance. Marcus Aurelius once said, "If someone is able to show me that what I think or do is not right, I will happily change. For I seek the truth by which no one was ever truly harmed." You seek the truth even when it's uncomfortable, even when it means she's not ready for what you offer. And you accept that. You don't shame her. You don't chase her. You don't try to teach her. You simply embody what she has yet to become. And when the noise dies down, when the chaos tires her out, she will remember one thing above all: that when she was emotional, you were still. That when she was reactive, you were calm. That when she disappeared, you remained without reaching. And that kind of presence, that non-reactive sovereign stillness, doesn't just make a woman want you. It makes her confront herself. Because maybe you weren't too distant. Maybe she was just too unprepared to be loved by a man who didn't need her storms to feel alive. Number 8. Why the Stoic man doesn't flinch. He understands her silence, doesn't react emotionally, and earns her return through mastery, not movement. This is where most men fail. The moment she pulls away, their instinct screams, "Do something. Say something, win her back. They rush into the void with words, gifts, desperate attempts to repair a silence they never truly understood. But not you. You don't react. Because the Stoic man knows something most never learn. You don't lose a woman by staying still. You lose her by abandoning yourself in the name of keeping her. And that's a price you will never pay again. You understand that a woman's silence is not always a rejection. Often it's a storm she must pass through alone. And if you chase her into it, you rob her of the opportunity to choose you from clarity, not chaos. So you don't flinch. You don't fill the silence with ego. You don't weaponize your pain or inflate your pride. You simply remain still, sharp, sovereign. Because your worth doesn't shrink when she pulls away. And your peace isn't shaken by her indecision. You don't react, you witness. You don't chase, you contain. You don't demand closure because you're already whole. This is your mastery, the unshakable internal posture that no woman, no matter how beautiful, passionate, or chaotic, can pull you away from. And this is what draws her back. Not the flowers, not the texts, not the apologies, but the fact that you didn't move, that you didn't collapse, that you didn't distort your essence just to ease her fears. Because a woman doesn't return to the man who begged. She returns to the man who remained without bitterness, without performance, without losing his rhythm. Epictetus said, "It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters." And you reacted with nothing because your nothing was louder than their everything. You knew that sometimes the most powerful response is no response at all. Not silence out of pride, but stillness out of strength. Because your goal isn't to be loved. Your goal is to be aligned. And if love finds you in that alignment, good. If not, you remain undisturbed. So when she comes back, and many do, she doesn't find a man waiting by the door. She finds a man walking forward quietly, calmly, without apology. And if she is wise, if she has grown, she'll match that pace. If not, you'll keep walking, because your path is not ruled by her presence, it's ruled by your principle. That's why you don't flinch. That's why you don't react. Because you've built something far more powerful than attraction. You've built sovereignty. And to the right woman, that's not just desirable, it's irresistible. Most men chase the woman. The Stoic man chases himself, and that's why she returns. You saw her pull away, the messages faded, the energy shifted, and what once felt magnetic turned silent. Most men crumble in this moment. They overthink, overgive, overreach, not out of love, but out of fear. The fear of being forgotten, the fear of not being enough, the fear that her silence means something about them. But you didn't flinch. You didn't turn her distance into a personal wound. You didn't demand closure or collapse into reaction. You held the line, because you understand what Stoic men have always known. That silence isn't always the end. Sometimes it's the space where truth reveals itself. You didn't run after her. You didn't try to change her. You simply stood still and let the storm pass without becoming it. And in doing so, you became the man she can't replace. Not because you were loud, not because you proved your worth, but because you didn't need her to validate it. You became the rare presence that doesn't flinch under pressure. The man who offers peace, not performance. The one who disappears not in silence, but in self-mastery. And now she remembers. Not your gifts, not your words, but your calm, your restraint, your unshaken posture when everything else trembled. That's what echoes. And whether she returns or not, you've already won. Because you didn't break, you rose. And if this message reached you in a moment when you needed it most, if you felt that silence held your breath, instead of chasing and chose to stand in stillness, instead of begging for closure, then this space was made for you. Subscribe to the channel, not for more noise, but for deeper clarity, for truth that holds your spine when emotions try to bend it. You're not just becoming harder to get, you're becoming impossible to forget.